From working at GE to founding PlateRate, Garrett Lang's journey is filled with entrepreneurial spirit and product innovation. Tune in to hear how Garrett is transforming the restaurant industry with a unique loyalty platform that incentivizes customers to return based on highly rated menu items.
I started my life as an entrepreneur, selling gobstoppers for 25 cents a quarter when they cost 50 cents a box. Had a very good ROI on that investment. And in middle school, I was also a programmer for Houghton Mifflin building edutainment software. So I started my career as a developer pretty early. I was a self-taught programmer and did it professionally. Worked for an internet service provider doing sales and technical support when I was in high school. And when I was at that tech support company, we got outsourced all of the Mac calls that the CompUSA call center couldn't solve. And I was the most capable Mac support person back then. This was before anyone used Macs, but I was a Mac guy through and through and pretty hardcore with it. And so I got to be the final line of support for Macintosh support for CompUSA's 1-900 line. People paid $2.49 a minute to talk to me when I was in high school, getting paid like $8.50 an hour or something like that. So my boss had a very good return on investment for that. That was kind of my pre-college. In college, I was a computer science major, built a system that taught people how to learn Indonesian. Also worked for Campus Life doing Residence Hall Association leadership, founded the RHA at Cornell, and then also worked for Campus Life as an RA and then a program assistant, which is like a step up from an RA at Cornell. And then also worked for the help desk doing tech support. And so had 3 jobs throughout most of college. In college, was a computer science major and did, built a system that taught people how to learn Indonesian for the Southeast Asian Studies program, and worked for the Cornell help desk and doing tech support, and got promoted up to be a supervisor there, which is the highest role you can get as a student. And then was also working for Campus Life and founded the Residence Hall Association at Cornell, and then went on to be a resident advisor and a program assistant, which is like having a team of resident advisors that create programs throughout your part of campus. So that was Cornell. After Cornell, I decided I didn't want to be a career developer, even I'd done development since I was 14. So I wanted to try something new. So I was looking at consulting roles, mostly technology consulting roles. And I was kind of between GE's IT leadership program and Accenture, and ended up choosing GE's IT leadership program, which ironically Accenture was my highest offer and GE was my lowest. But I had a coach that suggested GE would have really good training. It turns out they did. I learned more in my month of GE onboarding training for that leadership program than I have in any other month in my life, including Cornell. And I really learned the practical, hands-on how to develop web app software for a company, which I didn't really learn in college. We didn't learn how to build web apps. We learned how to build Java apps, but not web apps. So, in GE, I moved up through the ranks. My first rotation, I basically built a web app for capital markets. I was with GE Capital, which is the financial services division of GE. I was there for the 10 years that were the last 10 years that they run best managed company in the world, for most of the years that I was there. Learned a ton from them. It was just like a really well-run organization, very low on politics for a 300,000 person organization, which is hard to say for any 300,000 person organization. But it was, low on politics when I got there, more high on politics when I left, which was part of why I left. My first rotation, I built a web app for capital markets. My second rotation, I built a data warehouse for the Treasury organization, which taught me about corporate treasury functions, short-term funding, long-term funding, financial derivatives and swaps and stuff like that. And there were a couple of other divisions there as well. And my data warehouse basically went across the whole treasury department. So I got to learn about all the different types of treasury. After that, I went to corporate headquarters, which was a special rotation that I applied for and got. And I basically negotiated a contract with a third-party vendor to pay all of GE's energy bills globally. And that was pretty cool because it was implementing software that would manage and track all of GE's energy bills globally. And so I got to do sort of a requirements gathering and vendor selection and contract negotiation with the COO and CEO of the company. And they actually tried to go around me to my boss, and my boss was like, "Nope, you have to go to Garrett." And I negotiated a pretty darn good contract for GE that I'm pretty sure is, if I don't know, GE is now fallen apart, but it was still in place the last time I checked a couple years ago. It was a pretty cool real-time interface, which was pretty innovative for the time in like 2002. My last rotation, I was building a web app for the healthcare industry. I was basically managing a 21-person development team and matrix managing 3G employees. And we basically took a project that was a year behind schedule and got it back on track. It was a very interesting foray into the insurance reinsurance world. Really, that was direct insurance, like regular insurance. I learned a ton about the insurance industry, got a great experience learning how to continue to manage web apps. That was the second time I'd done it, so I had already had some experience and was able to hit the ground running at G Insurance Solutions. That was in Kansas City. Interestingly, I moved to Kansas City because they had, a reputation for giving a lot of responsibility to people in my program, which the 21-person development team and 3G employee leadership opportunity was. And I got to pitch that project out to the CIO. I ended up loving Kansas City. I lived in a part of town modeled after southern Spain, which was like beautiful with fountains and statues and mosaics. Actually, it was more beautiful than Spain itself, which I skipped. After high school, I went to Spain as an exchange student for a year. And so I speak conversational Spanish. Si quieres charlar en español, podemos hacer eso también, pero I'll make the interview in English because I suppose most of your audience is English speakers. I was an exchange student to Spain, and that was the year of my life that I learned the most. It was eye-opening to live outside of the U.S. bubble, I'll call it. Without living abroad for a year, I don't think you can get, or at least 6 months, I don't think you can get the same experience of an international perspective that someone who has lived abroad for at least 6 months has. So I found that to be a very informative year of my life, to sort of give me an idea of how the U.S. was perceived abroad. That was in the 90s. But anyway, back to GE, loved Kansas City. And in Kansas City, I was looking for jobs coming out of my program. And there was I really wanted to learn accounting skills. And there was actually a big accounting project in Kansas City that I applied for. There was also one in Connecticut that I decided not to go to because I didn't feel like it was very healthy. That project ended up completely failing. So I guess I was on point with my assessment. The one in Kansas City did quite well. Stayed there for 4 years. We really drastically innovated the way that accounting was done for the insurance reinsurance division of GE, and had a big impact on automating a lot of processes that were prior to very manual, and had a lot of opportunity to automate more, except that G Insurance Solutions got sold to Swiss Re before we could finish that. Either way, I learned accounting inside and out, which was a great experience, and got to work with a bunch of really cool people. Really liked all the people that I worked with at GE throughout the career. Coming into my next role, I went to Connecticut, back to the East Coast, because I really wanted to be close to my nieces and nephews who were growing up on the East Coast. and found a job running 2/3 of the technology for a $255 million net income business. That was a sort of, it was called program manager role, but it was really like a director of product role would be today. Back then, there were no product management titles, but essentially, I was leading the technology for dozens of applications, basically for everything but sales and marketing for that business. Stayed there for a couple of years. Ended up wanting to move to New York City, and there was really nothing that I wanted to work in GE in New York City. There was jobs at NBC, but I was being told that NBC was going to be sold off from GE anyway, so I didn't choose to go to NBC. Plus, there was a guy waking up at 10 in the morning when I went to interview there, and I work pretty hard. I like 60 to 80-hour weeks, but waking up at 10 in the morning is a little too much for me. I don't like to sleep in the office. Unless I'm working from home, which I am right now, you can see my bedroom in the background. So I do work from the office. I do sleep in the office now because I have a home office as an entrepreneur. But when I'm working for someone else, I don't like to sleep in the office. From there, went to a company called Market Share, was a product manager there and helped drastically improve their product during my first year and a half with the company, helping lead some of the major innovations in the product that helped it win some product awards and help it win a really good rating according to Forrester and Gartner, whereas the rating before I got there was not quite so good. The app wasn't really user-friendly and intuitive, and I made it a lot more user-friendly and intuitive for a B2B app. The second half of my time at Market Share, I was focused on improving profitability, took the profitability from below 26% to above 55% in just about 8 months, which I felt like was a great accomplishment. But after I had done that, it was kind of like, what else was I going to do at Market Share? So I ended up switching companies and going to a mutual fund company called Oppenheimer Funds. Enjoyed a lot of the people that I worked with there, but the job was a program manager job, and it wasn't like GE's program manager jobs, which is what I thought it would be like. It was more like a level up from a project manager. So it was more scope, schedule, resource allocation, and allocating how many people should be on each project, and a lot of resource optimization type stuff, not really innovative software stuff. So I ended up leaving there for that reason, because I'm more into the innovative software space, and unfortunately none of that was clear in the interview, and ended up going to a company called Maxifier, where I was in the ad tech space again. Market Share was in the marketing tech space, and so this was ad tech. And I was using artificial intelligence algorithms that I was creating myself to optimize who sees which advertisement. And so it was like, you have an ad over here and you have a customer over here. And I was creating the link between which customers see which ads to try to make, my phrase was to make an ad a value ad. The idea was to sort of make it so that a customer would see an ad that they were actually interested in. That's what my artificial intelligence algorithms were doing. And quite effectively, they more than doubled click-through rates with one client. Interestingly, that client complained that the reports that were given to them by our customer solutions team said that they weren't improving progress. I pulled the numbers myself and ran them, and it turns out we were doubling click-through rates. It's just that the customer solutions people were pulling the reports and doing the average of averages, which, as most of us know, the average of averages is not statistically even relevant or significant. It's kind of meaningless numbers. So I went about trying to get that changed so that we would report on accurate metrics. But that company ended up getting sold to a company called C-Sense, and everybody was let go except for the engineering team. They pretty much just bought the engineering team. From there, I went to a company called Exalate, which was acquired by Nielsen. Again, it was marketing tech, but this time Exalate was building a marketing cloud, which is now the Nielsen Marketing Cloud. And I was in charge of 2/3 of the Nielsen Marketing Cloud, including the auto product and the sort of personal insights product, to understand your audience better. Made some pretty significant improvements to both of those. Brought the Nielsen auto product live into production because it wasn't ready when I took it over, and had a bunch of other innovative ideas at Nielsen, but ended up actually moving on to a role. There was an opportunity to work with PricewaterhouseCoopers and Google, and it was a joint venture between the two. And so I ended up working there and basically managed a 50-person team of product managers, UX professionals, iOS, Android web developers, and a QA team, and was in 3 completely new spaces. Field service was the primary focus, and then workflow and retail sales were the other 2. We signed a multi-million-dollar contract on the retail sales project while I was there. And I got the field service product live in production. Again, they were supposed to go live the day I started. They were unable to go live because the app just wasn't ready. And I got actually a new part of the app that I thought of adding to the app. I got live before even the main part of the app. It was a call center extension of the app. And I brought that live early, and I got great feedback from the CIO, who had been the CIO of the field service company for 20 years. And he said, Garrett, if you build that roadmap, you guys are going to be the number 1 field service product in the industry. And unfortunately, my boss ran out of money before we could get enough traction to keep getting funding. I joined a little bit too late, I think, that organization. Because if I'd been there a year earlier, which I actually had the opportunity to go there when I went to Exalate, but in a different role, then I might have been able to make a difference. But hindsight is 2020. Then essentially wanted to start my own company. Like I said, in middle school, I was selling gobstoppers on the playground. Been pretty entrepreneurial my whole life. Decided I wanted to start a business. I created a list of 10 businesses I wanted to start. Most of them were B2B because that's kind of the space I come from, but one was B2C, and it was pretty appealing to me. It was the idea of doing menu item level reviews. This was back about 8 years ago, before anyone was doing menu item level reviews. I went to Startup Weekend, and I shared the idea of menu item level reviews publicly there. And then I subsequently shared it in coffee shops. And it could be a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences, considering that this has happened to me half a dozen times. Shared the idea with people in coffee shops. There was no menu item level review apps anywhere in the world. And within a year, there were 6 menu item level review apps that got VC funding. And maybe all of those were coincidences, but maybe not. But like I said, that's happened half a dozen times where I've shared individual ideas of PlateRate on one-offs, and people have copied that idea, or they independently invented that idea at a very coincidental time frame in industries that have been around for decades that never had that innovation. Certainly both of those are possibilities, but I think one's more likely than the other. That said, PlateRate started out as the idea of menu item level reviews. It has since evolved to be not only menu item level reviews, so we know the highest rated food at a restaurant, but we have an incentive which competes with Groupon and Living Social, but is much better for restaurants. And the way it works is on your first order from a restaurant, you get a 30% credit on your whole bill to come back to the restaurant within 3 months. So it's an incentive for loyalty, which we're the only ones in the industry doing, is an incentive to come back to the restaurant. Everybody else is giving an immediate cash discount, which attracts deal seekers, which is not who we want to attract as PlateRate. We want to attract people who want to be loyal to our partner restaurants. So that 30% credit is added on to if you order one of the highest rated menu items at the restaurant, which who wouldn't want to order the highest rated menu items at the restaurant? If you order one of the highest rated menu items at the restaurant, then you get a 60% credit in free food to come back within 3 months. When you come back and you use that 60% credit, if you order new menu items that are highly rated, you get a 30% credit to come back a third time. And you keep getting that credit until you've tried all the highest rated menu items at the restaurant. Once you've tried all the highest rated menu items at the restaurant, you get loyalty credits, which is like every $100 you spend at retail price, you get a $10 credit in free food. Those are pretty ubiquitous throughout the industry. We do them as well, just to keep up with everything else that's out there. But the main attraction of PlateRate is a 60% credit in free food, which you really can't find anywhere else. The main attraction for restaurants is that we're drastically creating loyalty for restaurants in a way that nobody else is, because we're incentivizing a repeat visit, which there's no other company really doing right now that I know of. And I've watched the industry pretty closely.